Listen up, because this is crucial. What I'm about to lay out for you could spare you years of agony, bewilderment, and squandered vitality. I've spent over a decade dissecting human behavior, timeless wisdom, and the intricacies of relationships, and I've identified 5 distinct phrases. When a man utters these, consider them a direct window into his genuine intentions, so clear, ignoring them is like sleeping through a smoke detector blaring in your own home. These aren't just warning signs, they're calculated verbal traps camouflaged as everyday chat. Once you recognize them, you'll spot them everywhere. Stick with me, especially for the last one. It's so cleverly disguised, yet so utterly destructive, that 99% of women don't see it coming. And honestly, it might be the single most vital piece of knowledge for safeguarding your spirit this year. Before we get to these 5 verbal landmines, there's a fundamental truth you must grasp, one that will permanently alter your perception of every male interaction. Most women are socially programmed to offer endless chances, to focus on a man's supposed potential instead of the stark reality before them, to try and fix rather than flee. This conditioning is so ingrained, we've often muted our innate alarm system for identifying those who prey on emotions. And yes, emotional predators is precisely the term. These individuals employ specific linguistic tactics to probe your limits, cheapen your expectations, and make you doubt your very essence. Ancient philosophies, like the Chinese concept of Shi teach that words are vessels of energy. When someone speaks to you, they're not merely conveying data, they're transmitting their inner world, their hidden agendas, and their true level of respect, or lack thereof, straight into your personal space. This is why some conversations leave you feeling depleted, muddled, or second-guessing yourself. Even if you can't articulate what exactly felt wrong, your intuition registered the manipulative energy, but your logical brain tried to explain it away. What I'm sharing isn't just dating tips, it's a form of energetic armor. It will shield not only your heart but the entire trajectory of your life. Because here's the unvarnished truth few discuss: the partner you choose profoundly impacts everything: your career, your friendships, your family ties, your self-image, your financial stability, and even your physical well-being. A wrong choice can mean years of your precious life force spent recovering from the fallout. Choose wisely, or better yet, learn to instantly spot and disengage from the wrong ones, and you clear the path for something genuinely wonderful to enter. The first phrase that should have you sprinting, not just walking, in the opposite direction is when a man says, "You're just too sensitive," or variations like, "You're being overly dramatic," or "You're blowing things out of proportion." This is a masterclass in psychological gamesmanship engineered to make you distrust your own accurate reading of a situation. When a man brushes off your emotional responses as too much, he's not critiquing your sensitivity, he's broadcasting his own incapacity to deal with a woman who values herself and expresses her truth. Here's the real play: he's testing if you'll silence your emotional wisdom to prioritize his ease. He wants to see if you'll diminish yourself to make him feel more significant. A man who genuinely cherishes you doesn't shut down your feelings, he becomes inquisitive. He probes, he listens, he strives to grasp your viewpoint, even if he doesn't immediately share it. When a man implies your natural emotional reactions are flawed or excessive, he's flat out telling you his comfort trumps your authentic expression. The sneakiest part of this phrase is how it plants a seed of self-doubt that can fester for years. You begin to overanalyze every emotion, every gut feeling, every intuitive nudge. You start policing yourself, constantly wondering if you're too much. This is exactly the state emotional predators aim for. They need you disconnected from your internal compass because your intuition is their biggest threat. Women who've endured this dismissal often spend years later painstakingly rebuilding trust in their own emotions, having been conditioned to believe their feelings were invalid. This is a form of energetic assault, and it's rampant because we've mistakenly accepted it as just how men are. But I'm telling you, evolved, conscious men don't play these games. They recognize a woman's emotional depth not as a flaw to be corrected, but as a strength to be revered. The second phrase that should trigger immediate alarm bells is, "I'm just being straight with you," or "I'm only telling you the truth," particularly when it's tacked onto a needlessly cruel, cutting, or deliberately wounding remark. This tactic is a smokescreen, designed to rebrand cruelty as a form of integrity. When someone wields honesty like a club, they're not being honest, they're being abusive and trying to guilt you into accepting it. Genuine honesty springs from a place of love and sincere concern for the other's well-being. It's offered with kindness, empathy, and sensitivity to timing and context. When a man delivers a deliberately painful blow and then hides behind the "just being honest" excuse, he's showing you he either completely lacks empathy or worse, derives a certain satisfaction from causing you pain and wants to blame you for feeling hurt. I've witnessed this pattern systematically dismantle women's self-worth. He'll chip away with comments about your looks, your mind, your aspirations, your friends, your family, anything dear to you. And when you dare to express that his words sting, he'll flip it, making you the problem for not appreciating his so-called honesty. This sets up a psychological bind where you start to equate love with enduring harshness, and asking for kindness feels like weakness or neediness. The reality is, a man who truly loves you will instinctively want to lift you up, not cut you down. Yes, tough conversations are sometimes necessary, but they're approached with care, intending to fortify the connection, not to diminish you. When someone habitually uses honesty as a license for cruelty, they're showing their hand. They're not on your team. They're more invested in establishing power than in fostering real intimacy. What makes this phrase especially insidious is our cultural tendency to overvalue bluntness, sometimes even above kindness. So we often feel obligated to be grateful for someone being real, even when that realness feels like an emotional battering. But here's the critical distinction: you deserve both honesty and kindness. In fact, honesty devoid of compassion isn't true honesty, it's just meanness in a flimsy disguise. The third phrase that should make every internal alarm shriek is, "You're so controlling," especially when it's his response to you stating a boundary, a need, or a concern about his actions. This is textbook gaslighting, pure and simple, and its aim is to make you terrified of advocating for yourself. When a man slaps the "controlling" label on your perfectly reasonable requests, he's conditioning you to stop asking for what you fundamentally need. Let me be absolutely clear: boundaries are not about control. They're not demands. They're not punishments. Boundaries are simply you articulating what is essential for you to feel safe, respected, and cherished in the relationship. When you say things like, "I need you to let me know if you're running significantly late," or "The way you spoke to me earlier wasn't okay," or "I need us to have quality time together without constant interruptions," you're not being controlling, you're being clear about your standards for respectful treatment. A man who retorts by calling you controlling is revealing a vital aspect of his character. He prioritizes his unrestricted freedom over your emotional well-being. He's showing you that he sees your needs as inconvenient hurdles rather than crucial information on how to love you effectively. This isn't the bedrock of a healthy partnership. It's the blueprint for a dynamic where you progressively erase yourself to avoid being branded difficult. The tragic outcome for women in these scenarios is that they start to shrink their needs, downplay their discomfort, and tolerate treatment that violates their core values, all because they've been manipulated into believing that having standards equates to being a control freak. They might even start to pride themselves on being low maintenance, not realizing they're abandoning themselves to appease someone who doesn't genuinely value their happiness. Here's what you must understand: a man who truly loves you wants to know your boundaries because he wants to honor them. He gets that your boundaries aren't chains on the relationship, they're the very framework that allows trust and deep connection to thrive. When you feel secure enough to voice your needs without fear of being labeled or dismissed, you can truly relax and bring your most authentic, loving self to the partnership. The men who accuse you of being controlling for having boundaries are often the same ones who will exploit your lack of them. They crave full access to you while offering the bare minimum in return. They want the perks of a committed relationship without the responsibility of genuinely caring for another person's heart. The fourth phrase is perhaps one of the most subtly destructive: "I'm not looking for anything serious," or "I don't want a relationship right now." But here's the insidious twist: he says this while simultaneously behaving as if you are in a relationship. He's in constant contact, monopolizes your free time, introduces you to his social circle, perhaps even his family, shares deep personal confidences, and fosters all the emotional closeness of a committed partnership, all while explicitly stating this isn't one. This phrase is emotional exploitation masquerading as straightforwardness, engineered to grant him all the advantages of your presence in his life without any of the commitment or accountability that comes with truly choosing you. He gets to have it all: your emotional labor, your physical intimacy, your time, your energy, your devotion, while retaining his exit strategy free from guilt because, "Hey, I told you from the start I wasn't ready." What makes this so devastating is the impossible bind it creates. If you stay and go along with it, you're implicitly agreeing to be an option, to be undervalued. If you express a desire for more, he can weaponize his initial disclaimer, making you feel like you're unfairly changing the terms. If you decide to walk away, you're haunted by the feeling that you might be abandoning something that could have become real if only you'd been more patient. But listen closely: when a man genuinely wants to be with you, truly desires a future with you, there's no ambiguity. There's no "not ready." not sure, or let's just see how it goes. When a man recognizes your immense value and wants to secure his place by your side, he acts with decisiveness and clarity. The men who keep you in this relational purgatory aren't confused about their desires, they know precisely what they want to keep you on tap without ever having to fully commit. This dynamic is uniquely painful because it keeps you emotionally hooked while systematically chipping away at your self-worth. You start to internalize the belief that you're not worthy of being fully chosen, that you must earn commitment by accepting less than you truly desire. You begin to view commitment not as something you inherently deserve, but as a prize to be won. The most insidious part, these men often do genuinely care for you. They like your company, they're attracted to you, they might even love you in their own constrained fashion. But they value their own freedom and a roster of options more than your happiness and emotional security. They'd rather keep you in limbo than risk losing access to you by being truly transparent about their limited intentions. And now we arrive at the fifth and arguably most pernicious phrase, the one so artfully subtle that most women don't even clock it as manipulation until years down the line, when they're desperately trying to piece back together their fractured sense of self. This phrase is, "You've changed," but it's delivered with a tone of disappointment, accusation, implying that the person you're evolving into is somehow a downgrade from the person he first met. This phrase is a spirit crusher because it's engineered to make you halt your personal growth, abandon your evolution, and revert to an earlier version of yourself that was more convenient for him. When a man wields, "You've changed," as a criticism, he's inadvertently confessing that he wasn't in love with your potential to become your best self, but rather with your potential to cater to his needs. Here's the underlying dynamic: you're growing, evolving, perhaps setting healthier boundaries, chasing your ambitions, speaking your truth more boldly, or simply radiating more confidence. And instead of cheering you on, instead of feeling honored to witness your unfolding, he feels threatened. Why? Because the version of you he preferred was smaller, more pliable, more focused on him, and less on your own magnificent expansion. This phrase is particularly devastating because it strikes at your deepest human need to be loved and accepted for who you are. When someone you care about implies that your personal development is a form of betrayal, it triggers a profound internal conflict. You start to second-guess whether becoming more authentically yourself is worth the risk of losing his affection. You wonder if you should shrink back to the version that made him feel more secure. I've seen women abandon their aspirations, their supportive friendships, their career trajectories, and their personal development journeys because a man subtly, or not so subtly, guilt-tripped them into believing their evolution was selfish or wrong. They quit therapy because it's changing you too much. They shelve their passions because he preferred when his needs were their primary focus. They stop asserting boundaries because he liked you better when you were more accommodating. But here's the absolute truth at the deepest level: a man who genuinely loves you doesn't just tolerate your growth, he actively champions it. He's thrilled to see you becoming more self-assured, clearer in your desires, more aligned with your purpose. He understands that your growth doesn't endanger the relationship, it enriches it because you're bringing more of your vibrant, authentic self to the connection. When a man criticizes you for changing, he's essentially admitting he preferred you when you were less than your full potential. He's confessing his love was conditional upon your willingness to stay contained. This isn't love, it's a desire for possession. It's someone wanting to own you, not adore you. The most heartbreaking aspect is that women often internalize this criticism as proof they've erred, that they've somehow betrayed the relationship by daring to grow. They feel guilty for becoming more themselves, for taking up more space, for having clearer boundaries, for pursuing their dreams with greater passion. They start to see their own evolution not as a natural, healthy human progression, but as an act of selfishness. Now that you're armed with these 5 phrases and their true, underlying meanings, you might be experiencing a whirlwind of emotions. Perhaps you're seeing echoes of past relationships. Maybe current dynamics are snapping into a new, sharper focus. You might feel a surge of anger that this knowledge wasn't shared with you sooner. Or perhaps a wave of gratitude that you're learning it now. All these feelings are valid, and I urge you to acknowledge whatever is surfacing for you. But here's what I need you to truly absorb. This information isn't intended to turn you cynical about love or to make you view every man with suspicion. This is about cultivating discernment, the crucial ability to distinguish between individuals who genuinely have your best interests at heart and those who are primarily motivated by what they can extract from you. This is about learning to implicitly trust your intuition when something feels off, even if your logical mind can't immediately pinpoint the why. The truth is, there are men in this world who would never dream of uttering these phrases to you because they understand that genuine love is about fostering safety, not about constantly testing your limits. There are men who celebrate your sensitivity, recognizing it as profound emotional intelligence. There are men who, when they must deliver difficult truths, do so with inherent kindness because they actually care about your feelings. There are men who deeply respect your boundaries because they grasp that boundaries cultivate intimacy, not distance. There are men who commit to you with clarity and enthusiasm because they unequivocally recognize your worth. And there are men who delight in watching you grow, understanding that your expansion enhances the relationship rather than threatening it. These men exist, but you'll never recognize them if you're too busy trying to rationalize the behavior of men who clearly don't value you. You'll never attract them if you're consistently settling for treatment that screams against your intuition. You'll never build something truly beautiful with them if you're depleting your precious energy trying to fix someone who has no genuine interest in becoming a better partner. Here's my call to action for you. Start meticulously observing how you feel after interacting with the men in your life. Do you feel uplifted and energized, or drained and depleted? Do you feel seen, understood and valued, or confused, diminished and small? Do you feel encouraged to be more authentically yourself, or subtly pressured to be less? Your body is an incredible barometer. Your energy doesn't deceive. Begin to trust your initial gut reactions instead of systematically talking yourself out of them. If something feels misaligned or off within the first few weeks of knowing someone, it almost certainly is. If you find yourself constantly making excuses for someone's behavior or trying to convince yourself that their words didn't truly mean what your intuition screamed they meant, pay very close attention to that pattern. If you notice yourself altering your personality, sidelining your goals, or lowering your standards to accommodate someone else's comfort zone, that's invaluable data about the dynamic you're co-creating. Most importantly, I need you to internalize this: walking away from people who don't value you isn't an act of cruelty, it's an act of profound self-love. It's not giving up on love, it's clearing the space for real, authentic love to finally enter your life. Every single moment you spend trying to coax someone into treating you with basic decency is a moment you are unavailable to someone who would never dream of treating you poorly. The right person for you won't require you to shrink yourself, to constantly justify your worth, or to gratefully accept emotional crumbs. The right person will perceive your value almost instantly and will act in accordance with that recognition. They won't need to be persuaded to choose you, because choosing you will feel like the most natural, inevitable, and joyful decision in the world. I want to share a perspective that radically shifted my entire understanding of relationships. Your boundaries are not impenetrable walls designed to keep love out. They are discerning gates that selectively allow the right kind of love in. When you clearly and calmly articulate what you need to feel safe, respected, and valued, you're not being difficult or demanding. You are simply being transparent about the conditions under which you can flourish and offer your most loving, generous, and authentic self. The individuals who resist or resent your boundaries, they are not your people. The ones who celebrate your boundaries, who ask thoughtful questions about how best to honor them, who willingly adjust their behavior because they genuinely want you to feel good and secure in their presence, these are your people. These are the individuals who understand that love isn't about grasping what you can get. It's about co-creating an environment where both partners can thrive. Every time you honor your own boundaries, you are actively teaching others how to treat you. Every time you walk away from someone who dismisses or disrespects your needs, you are making a powerful statement about your intrinsic worth that will resonate through every facet of your life. Every time you choose your well-being over someone else's fleeting comfort, you are laying the foundation for relationships built on mutual respect, not on lopsided accommodation. This isn't about hardening your heart or becoming emotionally closed off. This is about becoming crystal clear and fiercely intentional about who gains access to your precious energy, your invaluable time, your sacred body, and your tender heart. This is about deeply understanding that your love is a treasure and should be shared with those who recognize its immense value, not squandered on those who take it for granted. Here's the final, pivotal truth I want to leave you with, and it might just be the most critical insight you gain today. You are not responsible for healing the people who intentionally or carelessly hurt you. You are not responsible for painstakingly teaching people the fundamentals of how to love you with respect and consideration. You are not obligated to remain in situations that dim your inner light simply because someone else isn't ready or willing to step into their own power and maturity. Your primary job is not to be endlessly understanding, infinitely patient, or so forgiving that you lose yourself in the exhausting process. Your job is not to love people into becoming better, more evolved versions of themselves. Your job, your sacred duty, is to be unswervingly authentic, to consistently honor your own needs, to implicitly trust your profound intuition, and to meticulously create a life that feels deeply aligned with your most cherished values. The love you are searching for is also searching for you, but it can only find you when you stop settling for anything less than what you truly deserve. It can only recognize you when you are courageously being your full, unfiltered self, not when you're contorting yourself to be smaller, easier, or more convenient for someone else's comfort. So, the very next time someone utters one of these 5 phrases to you, I want you to recall this conversation. I want you to take a deep, grounding breath, trust the unwavering truth you know in your core, and make the choice that unequivocally honors your inherent worth, because you deserve a love that feels like liberation, not a love that feels like a prison. You deserve a love that celebrates your continuous growth, not a love that punishes or resents it. You deserve a love that sees your sensitivity as a precious gift, not a love that treats it like an inconvenient burden. Walk away decisively and without apology from anyone who makes you question your worth. Walk purposefully toward people who celebrate it. Your future self, vibrant and thriving, will thank you profoundly for having the courage to choose yourself, even when it feels terrifying, even when it feels agonizingly hard, even when it means walking away from a glimmer of potential that was, in reality, never truly there. The right love won't demand that you sacrifice your essence to receive it. The right love will feel like coming home to yourself, not like abandoning yourself at the door. Trust that, choose that, and never, ever settle for less than that again.